Thank you and welcome back to this final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. JMerritt, and the topic is the Metropolitan Nashville Education Association. And of course, Dr. Merritt, what we'd like to do during this last segment is to give you an opportunity to continue our discussion in reference to the budget.
Right.
And perhaps to say something in reference to some of the proposed cuts and some of the other things that generally are associated with salaries and et cetera. And so let's see if we can start off by talking about that.
Well, I actually have some documents here. I have the budget summary provided by the administration. It talks about cutting middle and high school teachers, principals, 43 guidance counselors, reducing textbooks. You know, before we do things like that, we really need to look at the fact that we have a director of schools that has 3 secretaries. When this director came on, the director of schools position was the only position in the school system that had a 6-figure salary. How many 6-figure salaries do we have now? And have teachers' salaries moved up percentage-wise as administrative salaries have? And I think you'll find that they have not. But I think we have a board administrator that we didn't have 4 years ago, and that board administrator has an assistant. I mean, we have a program in Metro Schools that is actually a metropolitan government program, but we have a Metro Schools employee overseeing that program. We don't need to pay from Metro Schools to oversee a metropolitan government. Carolyn Tucker presented a document that I have as well, and although it has some flaws, and Council Lady Tucker will tell you that as well, it has some valid ideas and points that need to be considered. It doesn't close any schools, it doesn't cut any teachers, and it doesn't cut the arts, music, art, PE. It doesn't cut any of those things, and I think that's important. Now, I realize, and the school board would tell you, that the mayor has told them that some of the buildings are not being used to capacity. And I've heard him say that as well. But I think what you have to look at is this the time to do that? This is a community that's going to be hurt because of cuts. How much are you saving by closing schools at this time? They're already going to lose resources, but do they have to lose their community school at this time? So I think all of that is important.
So it's not only, you're talking about eliminating a school, but you're eliminating an integral part of that very, very community, and the community certainly will suffer as a result of that school not being there, and so that's one of the possibilities in terms of closing schools, et cetera. And but now let's I think you talked about underutilization of facilities, and now what we have to do, what it seems to me that we have to do, is to get more children involved in the process and use those schools that are underutilized rather than cutting them out. Would that be the sentiment of the group, or what? I mean,
well, with integration and drawing the lines, there's a whole community that goes to Hillwood. That is in this area actually, and Pearl Cone has low numbers because many people in this community are being bused to Hillwood in terms for racial balance. And I'm not saying we need to go back to segregation by any means, but it's interesting as they look at these lower capacity schools, well, these buildings that are not being used to capacity, that they're all 60% minority. There are other schools that are not being used to capacity as well, but they were not considered for whatever reason. And I actually asked the question a week ago last night to Larry Collier. He said, we brought 4 schools forward, and there are 8 to be closed. And he said, and we were told to look at others. And I asked him who told him and why. And he never answered that question because, you know, what are people's motives?
You know, one of the things, though, I think essentially what you're talking about here is what we call neighborhood schools. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, the schools they're cutting are...
that's what I mean, that are being cut are neighborhood schools.
Well, Rose Park, for instance, is a magnet. And kids come from all over the cities. Rose Park used to be a neighborhood school, and there is a percentage of students that come from that community. But that school is performing. And you're going to cut that off? Gateway. And I realize Gateway is a small school, but it is performing. I'm trying to think. Cora Howe. I mean, and the majority of WA Bass, these schools are performing, and they're cutting them, and the minority community is concerned. Like I said, Tommy Morton Young is there about these cuts, and I guess it's not the impact of the cut now. You have to look down the road, and someone mentioned last night that it has to do with real estate and people wanting to move people out of the inner city to buy up the housing and then put up these high-rise condos like the Worthing lofts and things of that nature. So it's a bigger picture. People are really bringing a lot of information out. People are doing their homework. But my thing will always be cut things rather than people. Keep the cuts as far away from children. I mean, you look at the central office. I'm sure you saw those bathrooms. Larry Britton did a story. They have just done a major overhaul at central office. How many children visit the central office? And I remember people used to have 30-year desks. They just made do with what they had in central office.
But so there you think